A very good evening to everybody watching. Thank you for joining us tonight on the evening review. My name is Toivon Jabela. Tonight on the platform we are joined by Dr. Boniface Mutumba. He is an expert in the area of governance, especially within the spaces of local authorities and regional councils. And we would remember Dr. Mutumba perhaps best from his days at the University of Namibia, where he was a Pro-Vice Chancellor for Administration and Finance. Thank you very much, Doctor, for making time. You see now, you were at the university for so long. We associate Vice Chancellors with Professors, so you can imagine where it's coming from. So
it's true.
It's so good to host you here today.
Thank you very much, Toivo.
Yeah, wonderful.
And thank you for having me.
No, wonderful. I think before we get into the governance issues, let's also just reiterate the fact that you were acquitted. You were suspended by UNAM many years ago, but you were vindicated in the end.
Yes.
That also relates to governance, because obviously if you are suspended, it is implied that you were violating governance laws and rules and stuff like that. Again, if you can just tell us how that matter ended and how you feel these days after being vindicated.
Thank you very much. Anyway, like I've indicated earlier, when you operate leadership levels, particularly in the public administration environment or arena, you should expect one thing, that all your operations are subject to checks and balances. At the same time, there are democratic principles that underpin the entire operation of the entire public administration in our country. See, from each and every public institution, whether elected or appointed, you are expected to remain accountable. You are expected to remain transparent. You are expected to observe all the other general principles that pertain to the democratic environment that underpin the operations of the public sector organizations in Namibia. As a result of that, you can't preclude yourself from being subjected to allegations, particularly where a number of professionals are involved. In each and every space, there will always be infights, there will always be professional related jealous tendencies and all other things that can result into certain allegations being leveled against other people for certain reasons that we all cannot disclose, because when one does that, they do it with an intention backed up by some reasons. So I became part of the subjects of that situation where there were allegations leveled against me, which I believe only the court would have proven as to whether or not I was guilty or not guilty. So I'm glad that the processes took effect, and then the result ended into a situation where the court, acquitted me on two accounts. Because, there wasn't any evidence to point on the existence of any fault. So as a result of that, I was acquitted. And of course, I feel fine. Although it was a long time, it took long for the decision to have been made or for the matter to have been concluded. But as a leader, I'm still reiterating the fact that we should expect that in respect of our operations in the public sector arena.
Absolutely.
People will always accuse you. You should be able to account on each and every aspect when required to do so. And of course, when there are disputes, there are accusations of that nature, only a court can fairly adjudicate and come out with a verdict. So we observe the rule of law.
Absolutely.
So as far as I'm concerned, I'm fine. I'm a free man, I'm a happy man, I'm back again to service my own country, my own constituencies, I'm happy.
Absolutely.
Yes.
When it comes to governance, Dr. Mutumba, there's also these prolonged processes.
Yes.
you quit UNAM during your suspension in 2015.
Yes.
And the verdict, I think, only came in 2025. That's 10 years
Yes.
of having that burden.
Yes.
Your professional reputation is being questioned.
Yes.
If you want to pursue other opportunities, jobs or whatever,
Yes.
with that thing hanging on your head,
Yes.
it's very, very difficult.
Of course.
Doesn't good governance also entail that things like that must be sped up so that people can be either found guilty or cleared so that they can pursue their life goals?
You are correct. Justice delayed is justice denied. Of course, the implications that follow are quite obvious. In fact, in terms of the legal system, there are prescriptions in terms of the period for which matters should be concluded by the court. But some technicalities, to a certain extent, times, override the legal efficacy to that effect. Because there are certain requirements that need to be met. There are certain witnesses to be called. All these things at times lead to transfers of magistrates, prosecutors, the resignation of others. So in the interim, delays crop out. But I believe there is need for the justice system to be adjusted to make sure that people are brought before the courts of law and matters are resolved, expediently and timelessly, to ensure that we don't end up affecting the livelihood of people accused of certain irregularities or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's need for the system to be adjusted so that we comply with the constitutional provisions that pertain to the timelines set, time to start and conclude a matter that is appearing before court.
Absolutely. I know, Doc, that you work for the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development now. Of course, you are here in your personal capacity.
Yes.
We must clarify that. But issues around, in general now, around local authorities and regional councils, they continue to make headlines every other week.
Yes.
For example, this week, there was a report in Namibian Sun Monday that the regional council of Kunene is at loggerheads with the ministry over the issue of the CRO, and that is just one of many other across the country. You find those kind of things. Why is it so difficult to just work together? The political leadership and the administrative leadership of those institutions understand each other for the sake of the people.
A very good question, and it's a very positive observation. You see, the most funny part that you will experience in our system, particularly in our country, is that we have very good laws.
Yeah.
We have very good systems. We have very good pieces of legislation. We have a constitution that extrapolates all the aspects of governance, particularly in the area of regional local governance. We have a tripartite government system that clearly indicates the intergovernmental related framework that ushers in the manner in which central government, regional councils, and local authorities need to operate. Yeah. Although central government institutions, regional councils, and local authorities all are governed by different pieces of legislation, but we are an integral part of government. Yeah. The problem comes in when one level of government opts to operate outside the scope of the law. You see, the moment one level of government begins to operate outside the scope of the law, then we have a problem.
Who must impose that authority? Because one of the issues that we have is we had, for example, in the past 5 years, we had a situation. One was in Omthia, another one was in Ongwediva.
Yeah.
Where the act, the Local Authorities Act, says clearly that if you are elected as councillor of Katima Mulilo or Vukalo or whatever, you must reside within that residential authority where you were voted in.
Exactly.
And then we had, in Ongwediva, we had a councillor who was based in Okakarara, full-time.
Yes.
Working full-time in Ogakarara, but it's a councillor there. And then we had Thea, the mayor of Thea working full-time in Windhoek. And when you ask authorities, people even go to the Attorney General for a legal opinion. The things are in black and white in the Act, but people still waste time and money and resources writing to the AG. Why can't we just impose ourselves as the implementers of those rules so that we avoid those kind of things?
Very good observation. Like you see, if you look at what is currently happening, we are conducting induction programs for the newly elected councillors. That include other senior councillors that served before that returned to offices, regional and local authorities. These are some of the issues we are trying to address from the beginning under the 8th administration to make sure that we start at the right level. In other words, in this arrangement, the central government, in a tripartite government system we are operating, and in terms of the Namibian government system, the Constitution makes provision for the 3 levels of government. The central government, regional and local authorities, that have to relate to each other vertically as levels of government, but not as spheres of government. In other words, the central government in this arrangement prevails above both regional and local authorities, where regional and local authorities are second and third tier levels of government. So the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development is headed politically by a minister. But if you look at what the Constitution prescribes, it's very clear that in terms of Article 40, or Articles 40 and 41 of the Constitution, the accounting responsibilities of the minister are quite clear.
Yeah.
In practice, the Constitution still provides for specific, provisions that require the minister, to make specific decisions.
Yeah.
And that legislative arrangement is embodied in the pieces of legislation governing both regional and local authorities. So we do not understand why people should deflect away from the norm. If we have to do the right thing, we have to start by observing the laws governing this country and the Constitution, which is the mirror of the nation. In the Constitution, it clearly stands out that the central government, regional and local authorities constitute a democratic government system. In this arrangement, the powers of regional and local authorities derive directly from the central government via the decentralization process. In other words, the central government delegates devolves functions from the center to regional and local authorities. So there are modalities and mechanisms that are embodied in Constitution, as well as all other pieces of legislation governing both these 2 levels of government, which is the regional and local authorities. So the requirement is for us to conform to the norm by observing the rules. Number 2, when it comes to the specific example you cited with local authorities, Section 10 of the Principal Act governing local authorities is very, very clear. When the oath is undertaken by those members, they often undertake to uphold the Constitution and all laws that govern the Republic of Namibia. And they often pledge their commitment to carry out their responsibilities diligently, honestly, and to the best of their ability.
Absolutely.
Now, one wonders why you need to deflect away from Section 1 of the Local Authorities Act up to Section 94. It's very clear where the operational boundaries of local authorities start and where it ends. The same applies to regional councils in terms of the act that governs regional council, which is Regional Councils Act of 1992. You see, that's Act number 22. It's very, very clear. Now, in terms of our relationship, central government, regional and local authorities, it's quite clear, it's explicit. When are regional councils supposed to assist local authorities? The law provides. When do regional councils seek prior approval before certain decisions are made? It's already contained in that piece of legislation. So the same applies to local authorities. Where they have to consult regional councils and when is prescribed in terms of the governing legislation. But what perplexes us as the nation is that those that are elected decide often than not to deflect away from the rule of law. That's where the conflict now begins to prevail.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We'll go for a very, very short break and return with Dr. Boniface Mutumba. We are still talking to Dr. Boniface Mutumba, who is, of course, an expert in the space of governance, especially at local and regional authority level. Now, Doc, as we were talking in the first half of the discussion, why is it that do you think that 36 years into independence, it is time now that our country start being a bit more strict on who can become a candidate for a local authority council? Because there's this thing that if you, whatever political party you belong to, if you navigate your way somehow and you get elected, irrespective of your level of education, your level of understanding of anything, somehow you go to become the mayor of Windhoek, the capital city of our country, or whatever town in the country. There ought to be some minimum requirement like it is applied to all of us in other spheres of life.
Yes. You are quite correct. You know, the literacy level requirements can be set in motion through legislative amendments. Yeah. But now remember, we are operating a democratic government system where the Constitution prevails. For as long as the Constitution does not make provision for literacy level requirements, all acts of Parliament are enacted within the confines of the Constitution. So if there is need to adjust to that effect, which is quite a fact that we can't deny, that should come directly from the people themselves. It is the people of Namibia, through the democratic institutions of the state, who should express the desire to usher in a literal level requirement into the governing legislation, so that a level of literacy should be prescribed in terms of the law, so that will require amendment to the pieces of legislation governing regional and local authorities as well as the Electoral Act.
Do you think it will be good for the general public to be governed by people who at least understand a thing or two?
100%, because you see, you can only be an effective elected leader if you have the required competences to deliver. Because look, for example, in the case of a regional or a local authority councillor, the key competences of these elected leaders are quite, clear. Number one, you have to be a very good representative of the people. That requires a level of competence. You have got to be a financier to a local authority. You should know how to manage financial resources, how to plan, how to control the utilization of resources. Number three, you need to be a facilitator. You need to be, you are dealing with a multifaceted series of stakeholders, private sector organizations, NGOs, community-based organizations, the general populace, and the like. The list continues of stakeholders. Now, for you to be able to facilitate in times of conflict between all these people, you require that level of competence to be developed. And then you end up with leadership. The leadership competence for an elected leader is the only key ability that can cause that particular person to deliver effectively. So that's where your suggestion works in this regard.
Tell me again, Doc, also on the issue of we have our Local Authority Act makes us have this midterm annual elections, intra-council elections every year, where councillors who were elected, of course, in the main election, and they are now part of the City of Windhoek or Rundu or whatever, towards the end of every year, they sort of vote for their management council members and mayors and all that.
Yes.
What is the rationale behind that? I find it very disruptive.
Okay.
I think it's necessary because sometimes you can get really a very, very bad leader, and there's no chance at all to change them. I understand that thing. But annually?
Yeah, but you see, local authorities in this country are governed differently from regional councils.
Yes.
You know, in the case of local authorities, number one, remember, these are people that serve on a part-time basis.
Yeah.
They are entitled to allowances.
Yes.
You know? That's point number one. Number two, these are people who are privileged to still have other jobs but still serve.
Yeah.
So in a representative democracy where we operate, Namibia operates a representative democracy, an indirect democracy, where the people have the right to choose representatives to decide on their behalf. Of course, the requirement is for such decision-making processes to be done in consultation with the people that elected them. So the whole flexibility created by these annual arrangements is to make sure that efficiency gains are realized. We give councils a chance to look at how a specific leader or how specific leaders have dealt with the operations of council from the beginning up to the end. Remember, a management committee is the executant of council. That is now a body, a committee of council that drives its own powers from council. They are held responsible for executing decisions of council and overseeing and facilitating execution of all the operations of a given local authority as well as decisions of council. So with that, there should be checks and balances effected. They should be performance related. That's why you hear that there can be a motion of no confidence that can be moved against members of the management committee, and they can be removed even before the end of their financial issue. Before the end of the 1 year period. If they begin to work outside or their performance is literally below expected standard.
So why don't we do it that way, where we say it's no longer mandatory, this annual mandatory thing, but councils are empowered among themselves to evoke that process to say, look, we think we are going in the wrong direction. The leadership at the top is not steering the ship properly. And therefore, there's a provision in the Act that says, under such circumstances, maybe if a quorum or a majority of the council feels that there's need for a change, then it's done that way. Because now, Dr. Mutumba is a mayor, and he's on a trajectory, on a vision, and what. Come November, he's voted out, then a new mayor comes in with their own ideas, and it's the man on the ground that is affected.
Yeah, you see, the technicality here is that we have already mechanisms embodied in terms of the standing rules and orders of council that regulate that aspect. There is an issue of misconduct, and then poor performance or inability to perform. The basis upon which members of the management committee can be removed, or the mayor can be removed. It's already provided for in terms of the current instruments that are in place. The procedures are also there. The Principal Act was even amended in 2018 to make sure that all these elements are taken care of. That's why you see, if you look at the amendments to the Principal Act, you'll come to realize here that the mayor is now bestowed or is now apportioned executive functions on matters pertaining to specific aspects of community development. initiating programs and projects that would lead to employment creation, socio-economic development related projects. But that power she carries out in consultation with other councillors, because it's representative democracy. In other words, it does not have particular executive functions on his own. That's why the performance is judged collectively, because whatever the mayor does in executing such responsibilities in terms of the Amendment Act is subject to the approval of the entire council, the consent of the entire council. So it doesn't have individual executive powers. Same applies to the management committee. The management committee, as executant of council, obviously has powers that are bestowed upon that committee in terms of legislation. If you read section 26, it will be very, very clear in terms of what the powers of the management committee should be. Now, the management committee is expected, number one, to report on all its activities to the full council on a regular basis. Decisions of the management committee are subject to review by council. And when full council is not satisfied or views some of the decisions taken as irregular, they have the power to remit such decisions back for reconsideration by the management committee, which means that the mechanisms to control and ensure checks and balances are effected, to ensure quality checks and to ensure compliance are already in place. It's a question of those that are elected to invoke and exercise that.
Absolutely.
You see.
Doc, we have run out of time, but I have one last question to you. I need you on record on this one. There was a post on social media by, I think, the Opua Town Council, where it said that you facilitated, or they labeled you a consultant. You work for the ministry. You are an advisor to Minister Sankwesa, and the public was wondering whether you are moonlighting in your own space while still working for the minister. If you can set the record straight.
That's a very good point. You see, what happened is.
Briefly, if you can.
Briefly, I am currently a special advisor. So when I was invited by Opua to facilitate, it was a very informal invitation that every council is doing. I just came from, an assignment to facilitate, a discussion with the Valfish Bay municipality. See, in other words, when I was invited in my capacity as an expert, not as a consultant. As a result, there was no fees paid. There was no fees paid. I was just facilitating for free. I traveled to Ruakana at my own cost. I had my own accommodation covered for that day at my own cost. We are there to assist our local authorities. Yes, of course, I've been a consultant in the past. That's what they used to know. And Opua in the past was part and parcel of some of the other local authorities that fell under the scope of my clients. Those contracts came to an end before I joined the ministry. So now when I assist local authorities, I assist in my capacity as a special advisor to make sure that efficiency and effectiveness is ensured across the 13 regions. And all local authorities are doing that. Everyone else invites me. Everyone else, if I'm too busy, they will request for the minister to release me, and I'll always be available to do so. Even the minister will also do the same.
Wonderful.
So that is how it. So people, I was still confused. I'm happy you raised that issue. It's very, very important.
Absolutely. Doc, thank you for making time. We will invite you again because there's a lot of ground to cover. But for now, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome anytime.
Thank you. That is Prof. Dr. Boniface Mutumba speaking to us on the evening review this evening. Thank you for watching.